Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Avery. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a payday routine. I make videos all about my personal finance journey here on YouTube, specifically trying to build wealth on an average income. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely feel free to subscribe and stick around. I normally just look at my net paycheck and budget that out in these videos, but I thought today it'd be good to zoom out a bit and look at the gross amount, go over any pre-tax deductions I have, how much I'm paying in taxes, and then also take a look at my employer paid benefits since that is a form of compensation as well. From there, we'll get into the actual budgeting portion of the video, and then we'll also wrap up the video doing a little bit of a student loan update and checking in on any key spending targets I have for this month. So a little bit about me if this is your first video. My name is Avery. I'm 27 years old and I'm living in Ohio. I would consider it to be a bit of a mid-cost of living area, and I live with my partner Nathan, who I am engaged to. That being said, these videos are just my money and what I'm budgeting, so you're not going to see any of his income in this video, although he does handle our dog Cece's pet expenses, just for transparency. The current goals that I have with my budget is I'm trying to stay consistent and stick to my simplified budget. I recently consolidated my different categories and sinking funds, and I'm trying to be consistent sticking to this new simplified budget. As far as like actual financial goals, I'm trying to max out my Roth IRA this year, and I'm also slowly but surely trying to pay off my student loan debt. So we will see a little bit of that at the end. I get paid bi-weekly, so for these 2 weeks, I got $2,402.40 in gross income. I have to pay 10% of my income into my pension account. I am a public employee, and we are required to contribute to a pension in lieu of, say, like a 401k if you're a private employee. So this comes out to $240.24. From there, I have to pay, I believe it's 15% of my employer-sponsored health insurance, and I paid $74.58 from this paycheck. I'm on a PPO plan, so I don't have an HSA, and it's not a high deductible health plan, so I don't contribute to an HSA, which personally I'm fine with. I prefer PPO plans a lot more than HSA plans, although I'm sure high deductible health plans have their pros and cons. I also contribute $55 a paycheck into my deferred compensation plan, also known as a 457B, so that also came out in this paycheck. This has a step-up function, so every July it'll increase by $30 a paycheck, which if I stay in public service for a long time, by the time I get close to retirement, I'll be essentially close to maxing it out, or I'll be putting a very significant portion of money into this account. But for now, my main primary focus with retirement investing is my Roth IRA and then my pension account. So this brings my total pre-tax deductions to $369.89, which year to date, that comes out to $7,748.09 in pre-tax deductions, which definitely sounds like a lot, but most of it's going towards my retirement, so I guess it's not as bad as it could be. Moving on to actual taxes. For federal taxes, I paid $165.89. For Medicare, I don't have to pay into Social Security because my pension account is in place of that, but I still have to pay Medicare taxes. That way I have access to Medicare when I get older, assuming it's there, which means I put $33.76 towards this in Medicare tax. For state, I paid $48.62 in state income taxes, and then for the city, it's actually higher than the state, which to me is a little surprising, but let me know if that's the same for you. I don't know how common it is, but I did pay $58.21 in city income taxes, which brings my total taxes for this paycheck to $306.18, or year to date $7,306, which put that way, it just feels like a lot of taxes compared to my income, but I suppose it is what it is. Now, if you're nosy like me, I'm going to tell you about my employer paid benefits. So this doesn't actually impact my take-home pay, but it is something that my employer contributes and is a form of compensation when you think about it. So I thought it would be nice to go over this because I don't always talk about it in my videos. For retirement, my employer contributes 14% of my salary into the pension fund. If you think that sounds like a lot, it's not actually money that's directly going into my cash value of the pension. It's so complicated to talk about, but it's not similar to a 401k. Although it would be really nice if it was, because if I was putting in 10% and they were putting in 14%, that would be almost 24% of my salary going into like a 401k style account, and then that would probably add up pretty quickly if it was being like traditionally invested in like an index fund or a life path fund. But what it actually does in this case is it goes into the general pension like investment fund, and then the retirement system will go ahead and use that and manage the money and pay out monthly benefits. So the real benefit of working for an employer that has a pension is to kind of reach the age and service requirements to actually retire from the plan and take a monthly benefit. But anyways, that's a very long-winded way of saying they put $336 into the pension fund for me. For health insurance, they picked up the 85%, so that was $421.53, which the total amount between me and them, I believe, is over $10,000 just in medical premiums, and I've probably definitely used more than $10,000 worth in like medical bills and payouts. I feel like it's not super hard to actually spend more than what's contributed into healthcare, like the healthcare plan, so I don't really understand how. I guess what I mean is I'm not really surprised that the premiums go up every year. I don't have to pay dental and vision insurance, which is why you didn't hear about it earlier, but my employer pays it on my behalf, so that comes out to $34.23 for dental and $10.04 for vision. And then they also cover group life insurance. I believe this is just if I were to die, they would pay out 1 times my annual salary to my designated beneficiary, but this comes out to $8.91 going into group life insurance. And then finally, they also cover disability insurance. I think it's a combination of both short and long-term disability, although it's very confusing to me, and just hopefully you kind of just hope that you never actually end up in that situation, but they did pay $18.91 towards that. So bringing it all together here, my gross paycheck minus my pre-tax deductions and my actual taxes comes out to $1,726.33. My goals for this paycheck, I need to stay the course on my simplified budget. I think I said that earlier. I want to focus on budgeting and covering expenses for December, so I do try to budget 1 month in advance, which means the money I get now, I'm essentially just setting it aside and using my budgeting software to track that and make sure I have all my bills covered as soon as December 1st hits for the month of December. I want to keep my spending in lines for the rest of the month. It's November 11th, so it's crazy how we're almost halfway through the month. However, I know that Thanksgiving is coming and the holidays are going to be here soon enough, so it's very possible that I could go over budget if I'm not careful, so I want to keep track of that. And I just want to finish the year strong. I feel like it was a bit of a rough year financially in some ways from a spending perspective, so if I could just get back on track for the rest of this year, hopefully I can start the year 2026 on the right foot. Now let's get into the actual budgeting section of this video. Okay, so now we're in the budgeting software called YNAB, which I've been using for over 4 years now to manage my finances, and I'm here in the month of December because I am trying to budget this money for December. I've already covered everything I need to in November, and this actual budgeting part is pretty simple because I've already set up the monthly targets for each category, so I already know how much I need to do, and because I get paid bi-weekly, I just go ahead and budget out half of what is needed for each category. The very first thing I like to cover is rent, but as you can see here, I already have December's rent covered. I just like to be 1 month further ahead on rent if I can, since it is my largest expense. So I'm just going to go ahead into January and put the $500 I need for rent into here. Moving back into December, now that I have covered rent for January, I'm going to just go through the rest of these categories and budget out half of what is needed. My phone bill, I pay this yearly. It's Mint Mobile. So that's $17.50 for this paycheck. Then subscriptions is just a hodgepodge of things. I probably should go through here and look and just see if there's any I want to get rid of going into 2026. But for now, we'll just do $135 divided by 2. Groceries and household, I'm trying to stick to $400 a month, so this paycheck, it'll be $200 going into here. And then medical stuff, this is pretty high for me. I just have a lot of medical expenses from some chronic medical conditions, and then not all of it is covered by insurance, which is unfortunate to say the least, but I'm going to do $445 divided by 2 for this paycheck, so $220.50. For auto stuff, this is like gas, parking, auto maintenance, oil changes, things like that. So $175 divided by 2 is $87.50. And then my car insurance, I keep this separate because I just have always had it separate and I kind of like it this way. But I'll do $37.50 into there. I'm currently saving in this category for when it's due in March. So fun and spending, this is kind of my discretionary spending category. I'm going to do half. It'll be $150. My Roth IRA, although it's showing here in December, this money comes out in real time just from the perspective of like, it doesn't necessarily matter. I shouldn't wait to put money in the stock market. So I'll actually go back into November and put the $270 I need into this. So it's kind of a real-time contribution. And then moving on from that, I'm going to do $50 into my emergency fund. And then I'm going to do half of what I need for Canva Pro. This is just how I work on thumbnails on YouTube. So $650 there. I do leave it separate since it is a YouTube expense I keep it separate from subscriptions for that reason. Okay, I have $117.33 remaining. I'm going to do half of what is needed. Actually, similar to the Roth IRA, let me go back into November and I'll put this in real time because, again, since it's accruing interest, I shouldn't wait on making payments on this. If I have the money, I need to go ahead and do it. So I'll put it into November and make a payment after this. And then for this remaining $2.33, I try to do a zero-based budget, so I'm not going to leave the money here. However, when I did everything else, it's kind of just rounded to the nearest dollar, so every now and then I do have a couple dollars left over. For this, I'm actually just going to take this. It's literally just $2, but I just kind of decide what is the most pressing thing to me at the moment, and I think because of the holidays, I'm going to put this specifically into fun and spending. That way I just have a little extra dollars in case anything comes up. I'm kind of worried about Black Friday personally, not because I want to buy gifts, but because I'm worried for myself that I might have something I'm interested in and I won't have enough money for it. So yeah, that's where the $2 whole is going. Now I just want to close out this video talking about where I'm at with a couple key spending categories this month, and then also take a look at my student loan balances. So let's go ahead and get into that. So there's two categories I'm trying to pay attention to pretty closely in November, and really just any month, but this is kind of new for me to actually try to check in with myself in the middle of the month. So hopefully this added level of accountability helps me in this regard. Those two categories are my food category and my fun/spending category. The reason why these are problematic for me is I think it's just because the variable aspect of it. They are a lot harder to stick to because it's ultimately just kind of up to me to make sure I don't overspend on these, versus like monthly bills are pretty easy because you know that's the bill, so you can't really overdo it unless something goes wrong with your bill for some reason. So taking a look at the month of November so far for food, I've spent $130.65, which means I have $269.35 remaining. The biggest notable expense here is I spent $47.44 at Olive Garden for a birthday dinner for my stepmom. Otherwise, it's just been a little bit of things here and there. Like I bought ingredients to make chili, so that came out of this, but for the most part, I really haven't spent that much money on food. I'm kind of hoping, since it is the holidays, I feel like with holiday time period, me and Nathan had decided that we were going to pull back on how much we actually bought at the grocery store, because we tend to find ourselves just in situations where we're getting food anyways, whether it's at work or somewhere else. You just go to a lot of more social events in the months of November and December, so you don't necessarily need as much food in the house. So hopefully that kind of helps, because then it kind of balances out with any sort of special holiday dinners that you might make with your family. But yes, $269.35 remaining there. And then for fun and spending, I've spent $166.83, which brings me to a remaining balance of $186.05. This will, in an ideal world, roll over each month, as assuming I have money left over, so it can build up over time, but this is a new category for me, so we're gonna see how this goes. As far as like notable expenses, I did spend $64.84 buying tickets to Chelsea Fagan from the Financial Diets book tour. So she's doing a book tour for her latest book, which is on hosting, and she's coming to Ohio, and Nathan and I, we actually watch a lot of the Financial Diets videos together and discuss them, so we thought it'd be cool to go to the actual book tour stop when she comes to Ohio and do that. So that does cover the cost of 2 tickets, and I think you get a signed copy of the book too for this. When Nathan gets paid, he will send me money for his half, so I should get a bump in this category. But for now, since the expense actually came out, and until I actually get the money back from him, we're just going to operate under the assumption that I only have $186 remaining. Finally, this brings me to a student loan update. So since I've last spoken to you, my current balance is around $13,964. I have federal student loans, and they are currently in forbearance, which means a payment isn't due, but they are still accruing interest, which means I'm trying to pay them off. With the money I just budgeted today, I will be able to make a payment of $115, which after I make that payment, my new balance should be around $13,849. And then the target balance, so the loan that I'm currently focused on, which has a 4.53% interest rate, after I make this payment, it should bring it down to $3,534. And in case you're wondering, the starting balance for my student loans, so when I first started paying these off, was $22,074.68, which means paid to date, I've paid $8,225 of these loans. That is not inclusive of interest. I'm not tracking all that, but as far as principal paid, I've done $8,225 towards my student loans. So I'm about 37% 10% paid off. So slowly but surely making progress on this, and hopefully I can get this done in the next couple years. That's my payday routine for my first paycheck in the month of November. If you like this video, feel free to like it. It helps support my channel. If you want to see more budgeting and personal finance content like this, feel free to subscribe and stick around. I hope the month of November is going well for you so far, but otherwise I will see you all in the next video. Bye now.